Over the last 5 years, I've worked with 33 different coaches, consultants, agencies as a remote closer and a consultant. And most of the time what I was promised and what I got were two totally different realities. And while most sales gurus preach that your freedom can be found by investing in your sales skills and fixing your sales ability, I actually found that most of my success had very little to do with my sales skills, rather mastering the skills that work around my ability to sell. And once I figured that out, I had discovered a literal cheat code to be able to make $20, $30, even $50,000 in a month working half as hard as I did as a run-of-the-mill remote closer. And so in this video, I'm gonna explain exactly what I did, because looking back on it, I've put thousands of hours into learning and understanding this industry from the inside and out, and I wanna explain exactly what you should do to be able to stand the test of time and see success in the long term, so that hopefully one day too you can achieve true freedom, get to the place where you can move into a beautiful 2,600 square foot 5-bedroom apartment. And for those of you guys who really want it, stick around to the end, because I'm going to give away a bonus for exactly where you can begin. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first thing you need to know is how to mind your own business. And what I mean by minding your own business is being able to put yourself first and foremost. A lot of you guys enter the industry with a mindset of like typical traditional employment, where you might be working with a company for 5, 10, 15 plus years and will make a long-term living and career. In my experience, the longest I've ever stayed in a business, second to my own, was 1 year. And that's because that the leadership changes, the management changes, there's a lot of immaturity, and those would cause tensions and conflicts that just made me feel happier being anywhere other than where I was. There's been plenty of offers I've been a part of that I think the business stands for something great, but the management is so bad that I opt to leave. Which comes to the second thing, which is working 2 offers at a time. Be comfortable working for 2 people at air quotes 40 hours a week. There's a really interesting subreddit called Overemployed where people talk about getting paychecks from 2 jobs or 3 jobs. And I would advise that you do the same. Interview and take on 2 positions, and don't feel like you need to tell both companies that you're working for 2 companies. Now, mind you, I'm not saying to go out there and get yourself in trouble, but what I am saying is that really utilize and maximize yourself more than you think that you can. Try to drive your productivity as far as humanly possible, and work for 2 different accounts and sell 2 different offers, and keep the house clean, do your admin, show up on time, be presentable. I assure you that if you actually truly try and apply yourself, it is not too hard to work 2 different offers at the same time without either one of them knowing. The third thing that you need to know is how marketing impacts the sales process. If ever you're dealing with people or sales calls where they just feel very inconsistent, meaning how do you build problems, or what are people's pains, or if you're dealing with people who are lacking a certain amount of interest or aren't really committed to your product and are just there because they're looky-loos curious, well, most of the time it's actually a marketing problem, not a sales problem. And what I see happen a lot of times is that salespeople will come into an offer or an environment where the product is tricky or harder to sell, and they will blame themselves if they're not able to convert it at a 20-30% rate consistently, 30% plus. But what they'll do is they'll begin to blame themselves if they're not able to convert at 25, 30, 40% plus. And this causes a lot of turmoil, is what causes a lot of you guys to go out and seek coaching programs and invest in, sales training or sales development to get yourself out of slumps. But what you need to understand is that actually marketing has a way larger impact on someone's ability to buy the product on the call than just your sales ability alone. Which leads me to say that what you should become comfortable with is making content, filming videos, maybe put yourself in the pre-call process, maybe create a pre-call video or a bottom of funnel video, however you might like to call it. But if you are part of the sales process and part of the content that somebody is producing, vicariously, they will develop a higher level of trust, certainty, and will understand and feel more willing and apt to purchase from you when they attend a sales call. And so that is the impact that marketing will have. You should almost always have a bottom of funnel video. Now, the fourth thing that you need to know is how organic traffic differs from paid traffic. Now, people talk about having a large organic following is a really good thing, and I definitely do believe it is, but I find it very difficult to close at a really high rate on organic traffic, simply because organic traffic differs from paid traffic for one core reason, and that is segmentation. And what I mean by segmentation is that the paid traffic, whether it comes from YouTube or Facebook or any paid platform or any algorithm, has a bias in there. There's a machine learning algorithm that can see a customer user's behavior in real time and will serve up your ad when someone is close to making a purchase decision. Facebook and YouTube can see when you opt into people's funnels, when you go all the way down and book a sales call. There are plenty of software sending that data back into the, massive brain that is Meta's algorithm. And so for that, when you get people off of ads, that traffic is typically way better because those are people who are so much closer to making a purchase decision or are willing, capable, or able to invest. Now, what you cannot control is the circumstances to which someone shows up to a sales call, meaning how much money they actually have in their bank account. But what you can do is convert them for whatever you can. And that's what Facebook is going to optimize for, is conversions. If you've ever run Facebook ads, you can see you run conversion campaigns. Now, the fifth thing is that you have to learn the systems that go beyond just selling. If you want to just have an average life or average career as a high ticket closer, just learn how to close. I assure you that your ability to sell and sales alone is not enough for you to get to your income goals or get to the level of freedom that you would like to have or flexibility. You must begin to learn and delve into things such as content, such as email marketing, such as middle of funnel, bottom of funnels videos, such as list management or activation strategies. It is important that you take your skills beyond just your ability to sell, because honestly, all of those other skills that I just mentioned are all tightly related to selling and will help you sell the product better. There is so much more that happens before someone attends a high ticket sales call with you that is going to greatly influence whether they buy or not. And so you must be able to think bigger picture or look just outside of your skills as a closer into how the business works. And this brings me to another point, which is understand the math of the business. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people in this high ticket space, they like to just think about the highest. I want to sell something for the most expensive, highest price possible, one-time sales, one call close off of ads. That's what everybody wants to do. That's kind of the dream, right? They want as many appointments as possible and just to rip 10, 20, 50K deals. But when you start to think about it in a bigger picture sense, it is actually better in a lot of instances to lower your prices and sell more people at a slightly lower price and then resell them for years and years to come. And this is where, as a high ticket closer, you might not take this into account because you're so short term on businesses. I definitely didn't think this way until I became a business owner, because when I was thinking as a high ticket closer, I would be happy if I stayed with a business for 4 months. I really was. If I could make it 4 months on an account before feeling the need to leave, I was over the moon. But usually something idiotic would happen in management or marketing that would provoke me to want to leave, whether it's just not liking how I'm being treated or something getting stiffed in my pay or things of that nature. And it wasn't until I started to think more about like the bigger picture element of the business that I could understand that, I can actually make so much more from these people. For you to upsell somebody that you sold into a higher ticket program 6 or 12 months after they bought the first thing is going to be a fairly easy sell, relatively speaking, especially if you're the salesperson that brought them into it. And that's why I say that if you can think bigger picture, place your bets accordingly. And one of the best things that you can do, coming to the 7th point, is going to be consider becoming a consultant or a partner. And I say that not self-servingly, but genuinely. If all you're going to a business is with your ability to sell, you are a commodity. Because name me a good salesperson that doesn't believe that they're great at selling. You can't. I think one of the most common things I see is that every salesperson believes that they are the best at sales. Hell, I even believe that I'm the best of sales. But that is just a belief that salespeople need to have to be good at their job. Because if you thought that you were anything short of phenomenal at selling, well, you wouldn't succeed. And so taking that bias into account, if you're able to come to a business and offer value beyond just your ability to sell, you will not only be a better candidate, but you can sometimes ask for more that other people wouldn't and set yourself up to be in a position of leverage where you don't have to take sales calls. For example, one of our most recent members of Fractional Sales Consulting, Daryl, he was in a position where he was the closer and kind of the setter. One of their setters quit, and so then he had to do some setting for the stock trading offer. And just last week, he was able to reposition himself to not need to take sales calls or set calls, and is now getting $5,000 a month as a base, with 10% of all of the cash that comes into the business coming to him. Meaning when a closer closes a deal for 10% and gets 10% commissions, Daryl also gets 10%. So he gets as much commission as the closer does without needing to take the sales call and a fixed base pay for his time. Now, mind you, what is he doing that a closer isn't? Well, if we put a visual on the screen, a closer is just responsible for confirming calls, taking calls, following up, and managing pipeline. Daryl is responsible for some of the media buying, some of the copywriting creative, some of the email writing creative, some of the funnel design, the sales management, the hiring, the staffing, the training, and the ramping. But if you're willing to learn these other skills, which mind you, are not that hard to learn if you are very good at closing. You can then get yourself where you don't need to make money on a commission-only basis. You can get a base pay plus some of the upside for everything that you do. And you are going to learn what is called leverage, where you can develop an army of salespeople underneath you. A really good comparison for those of you guys who might have a hard time understanding this or want to see a practical example of this beyond just Daryl is look at Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street, or even Grant Cardone, or even Andy Elliott, or even Jeremy Minor. Name any sales guru that you look up to. When did they make their money? Was it when they were selling, or was it when they assembled a team around them to go sell? It's always when they assemble a team around them to go sell. Think about yourself as a sales professional. How hard do you work in a day to get deals? How much do you fight to be able to get that commission check? Now imagine you had an army of guys like that who are fighting day in and day out to make you money. Wouldn't you want to be the person getting a percentage of all their production? Wouldn't you want to be the one to assemble them? Wouldn't you want to be the person on top of an army of men who will do nothing but go out to the market and pull cash into the ether for you? I've spoken to people who used to work in the floor of Grant Cardone, and there were days or weeks where someone from upper management would come in and say, hey, look, we need $500,000 cash into our accounts today. Whoever brings in the most cash gets a $10,000 bonus, something to that extent. And they would go out there and do it, just the ability to bring money in from the matrix. And so it is important that once you master the ability to sell and persuade, you learn to sell and persuade salespeople to come and work and sell for you and position yourself to take some of the upside. And that's what I figured out that allowed me to get to $20,000, $30,000, even $50,000 months consistently was the ability to get salespeople to work underneath me, to respect me and follow my lead. After putting thousands of hours into this, I've worked as a remote closer, I've worked as a setter, I've worked as a sales manager, I've worked for sales agencies, I've worked for small offers, I've worked for $1 million a month offers. And one of the best things that I figured out that allowed me to succeed long term, and even more so to where I am today, is making that switch from just being a closer into consultant in tandem with all the other things. I had to learn all the other skills before I was even capable of becoming a consultant. I had to learn to mind my own business. I had to be proficient to know how to work 2 accounts at once. I had to know how to manage my certainty. I had to know how, marketing impacted my sales ability. I had to know the difference between paid and organic traffic. I had to be able to take all of this stuff into account, not so that I could close deals, but just so that I could have control over my direction and my career and where I felt like I was heading. Because if I didn't have the awareness to learn that there were things outside of my sales skills that were going to impact my income, I would be dead. And that's what happens to most closers is they come in and they don't look outside of just their own sales skills and begin to blame everything other than themselves. And it's not to blame them, but it's to embrace them. The moment that you realize that there are factors and forces beyond you and that you can tame them and control them is when you become truly powerful. Once I understood that marketing impacted my sales and I learned how to market, then I became very, very powerful. I became dangerous because I could market to the things that I sold to be able to sell more of it. Once I learned how to convince people to work with me and for me, then I could market and sell and get these people into that system, and I became dangerous. And there's a really big split between those people who last long term and those who don't, and it is the willingness to embrace that and step into that and learn that and master it, the desire to really tap into that area that is beyond just what is typically understood and commonly understood and accepted. And once I stepped into that, that's when I found true freedom. Because I don't have to depend on anybody. I don't need to rely on anybody. I no longer just need to sell. While I know how to sell and can always fall back on that, I know how to sell myself into a position of higher power to be able to fix a business at a fundamental level that will drive sales that I don't even need to sell and do the conversions of. That is the place you want to get to, my friend. And if you want to succeed in this long term, you have to think that you're not going to be a closer forever, because being a high ticket closer, it is a young man's game. You can do it when you're young and you're very energetic, but eventually there will be a point that you get sick and you will burn out. And if your production's attached to your burnout, well, just like that, you're not making money and you're forcing yourself to persist through that burnout to make money, to feed that cycle and grind yourself into endless land. Where if you have a sales team, if that person burns out, you can have them take time off. And while they might be personally impacted, you have 4 or 5 other people who are closing for you and your money's coming in regularly. And if anybody underperforms and is not up to standard, well, then you just replace them with someone who will be willing to work to standard and continue to run that over and over and over again and let the money stack up and accumulate into your account. That is the level that you need to hit to, is to be able to have a goal that is outside of your ability to sell. And once you understand that, and now that you are aware of it, I encourage you to make that the next place you want to get to. Make that your new platform. Make that the new standard that you're striving to achieve, is that ultimate level of excellence as a not only remote closer, but as a consultant, as a partner, as someone who's hyper talented in all of these things. And if now that you're aware of this and you're curious to know exactly where you should begin or start, because there's not a lot of stuff out there to show salespeople how to become marketers and all this other stuff. Well, the first link down below is going to explain how you can get your first fractional consulting client, as I like to call it, under the radar, where you don't need to quit your job or let anybody know, and you can get a platform, a business to take you on to do those things without you needing to be hyper qualified, without you needing to leave your existing work. And so that way you can prove it to yourself. And then maybe one day you'll join us in the elites of fractional sales consulting. But before then, it's important that you really get serious and understand yourself and your situation, because it was the moments where I was able to just sit down and have a real hard look at myself and my skills that I was able to get clarity on where it was that I should be going next and what I should be doing. Once I realized I was good at sales and sucked at marketing, I had to embrace the humility that came into marketing. Once I knew that I was good at marketing but sucked at hiring and leading, I had to embrace the humility that came into that. Once I did that but was too scared to go out to the market and find my own clients, I had to embrace it and confront it. And now that I'm comfortable getting my own clients, I have to learn how to get clients and market at scale. In this game of constantly testing yourself and pushing the unknown and learning new skills will never stop. It will never stop. But the people who really last long term never stop. And those who don't do. And typically they give up at just figuring out the whole sales thing. So I hope you found this video helpful. I'll see you guys in the next one.